Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's right. This is interdisciplinary program, and this is not only limited to the aspects that you've seen on the previous slides, but this interdisciplinary program means that within the 10 hours allocated, we decided to focus focus attention and activities of our students on the online and offline areas. If using simple messages like "don't do this," "don't harm the others," "don't bully over other kids," if this was possible to upbring children and to solve all problems, the world will be very simple. And there wouldn't be any conflicts. However, psychologists and educators perfectly know that the declared attitudes have nothing to do with the truth and with things that which are going on around us. That's why we decided to strengthen something which can be more effective buffer for the negative behaviors in internet. Some of these 10 hours program we decided to devote to enhancement of some psychological skills that can be a great barrier of negative behaviors in internet. They're also of universal nature. They relate to the behaviors in offline and online world, but they also build a certain developmental potential for the future. What kind of competences, what kind of skills are we talking about? Which of them are so impactful? There are many of them. We focused on 2. However, we name here 3 as we decided actually to focus also on something which is called self-control. So the self-control and the perception of perspective. So self-control is about anticipation, thinking of the future, harnessing some automatic behaviors. That's why we decided actually to focus on this, and we prepare just separate lessons. So these competences we decided to develop, and students should pay attention to these specific aspects. Why? Why these competences? Because I have quite a broad knowledge in them. I know the regulatory functions. There are plenty of surveys and research on self-control, proving positive consequences for education, for ability to negotiate, interpersonal sensitivity, limitation of conflicts, and avoiding collisions with undertaking actions which are illegal. Another argument for these competences was the pilot program that we ran during a 2-year study. And this pilot program proved that deficits in the area of self-control and adoption of the perspective are a very important scientific predicator to become a victim or offender or a witness of cyber violence. So we had this evidence coming from our pilot program. Another argument that convinced us to focus on these areas of competences was the fact that we learned a lot about the way that our brains work when come in contact with digital media. So digital media increase the fragmentation of the reading of a given text content. They lower effective memory abilities. They increase multitasking and superficial way of processing the information. All these justified our focus on these competences. So the philosophy behind, the idea behind our project in these competences was covering the pilot and the research phases. And here we proved that these competences relate to negative behaviors online, and supporting them would increase selective behaviors in digital space. So let's have a look at this competences. Self-control. It's a complex, multidimensional cognitive competences. It has its neuronal initiations. The cortex is responsible for these cognitive competences. It also helps to develop educational and cognitive skills. Knowing that, we planned some lessons, and I would like to share some examples of them. There is, for instance, one lesson where we teach about automatic behaviors, and we teach them that majority of our behaviors and attitudes happen beyond our control, and so as Freud said, we are aware of the tip of the iceberg, whereas actually everything else happens elsewhere, and it is just done automatically. And that's why we wanted to show to our students what automatic behaviors are. Automatism. So we tell the students a banal, simple story where a young boy goes after school to the cafe. He wants to go for ice cream or maybe for a cake and then for a cookie, and then he wants to go home. This piece of text is read by the teacher and students after listening exercise. By the way, this text is also illustrated. Our foundation prepared some images supporting this text. And Students' task is actually indicate where in the story we have the automatic, demonstrate automatic behaviors. There is a big surprise because this whole sequence of 5 minutes behaviors, it's just automatic. This is first important lesson that proves, that makes students aware that our daily behaviors, daily functioning is exactly as the metaphor of a robot in myself. So basically, these robotic behaviors, it's all about automatisms and self-control. Then another example where we wanted to show students that even the action of reading is automatic. So we just give them a few sentences. We just show you one of the sentences here on the slide. You can easily read this sentence. Students can easily read this sentence as well. Why? Because we read automatically. We don't use algorithms. We read heuristically. Therefore, we are able to read the text, which is full of errors, by the way. And students start learning and discovering that, in fact, it's getting easier and easier to give examples of automatic behaviors. So the conclusion of our lessons is that the automatic behaviors are also demonstrated during our behaviors online. Then we have homework, and the students are actually to describe the automatic behaviors online. These automatisms online can be limited, and this is next exercise that we want to do. The practice makes the master, by the way. And for instance, we show them funny situations or funny stories. This is an example where we are going to focus our vision on the cross, and then the task is that we distract the focus from the dot and we ask them to read the letter. It is very difficult because actually it is difficult to hamper to stop the automatic movement of our eyeball to not to avoid looking at the dot. So these are examples that show what automatic behaviors are and what is it about to stop such automatic behaviors. Then another example of empathy. First, the students recognize emotions, the simple emotions first, and everyone is successful here in guessing. Then complex reactions and emotions. This is getting more complicated, and then we start discussion what the emotions are, how to recognize them, how you can recognize emotions in internet space. The typical example of adoption of perspective or entering into certain perspective is another exercise, which is, by the way, very popular among students. We just give them this kind of anagram. This is a real word, and then we ask them to estimate how long will it take to guess the word. So one group is estimating the time, and the other group is truly actually coming up with the words. So those who estimate, they estimate much shorter time, and those who do the real exercise, it takes longer time. And then we have a discussion always, what really happened, what was avoided, what was actually somehow omitted, forgotten, and that's exactly adoption of perspective or entering into perspective.